Are we closer than ever before to getting the Save America Act passed, to securing our elections in this country and fighting against the ridiculous nonsense we've all seen? Maybe. If you follow the betting odds, you know that Kalshi betting site where you can bet on anything, and there are others on there, the odds of passing the Save America Act just skyrocketed up yesterday. Now, why would that be? Well, of course, because he's such a news generator, a lot of this comes from President Trump. But something else happened this week. You and I didn't even talk about it on the podcast or the live stream that may have spurred this into action. We've all called for it. When is Trump going to get tough? Haul the RINO senators, those would be the Republicans in name only, the useless ones that call themselves Republicans, that are fighting in the Senate specifically and fighting against securing our elections. Who are they, and why isn't he calling them out to their faces? Well, it happened yesterday. We'll get to all that. Will it make a difference? Maybe, but I will add this. As soon as he called them out to their faces, then they dropped the gavel and they went on vacation. But things are a little bit different this time. We'll get to it. Thanks for finding me. I appreciate you. Good morning. Welcome to Thursday. Make it a wicked awesome one. The Wicked Radio live stream and podcast on X and YouTube and Facebook. And the audio podcast, wherever you like to get those. Shortly after we get off the live stream, let's get right to it. So the day started off with this. And you may have seen this. Trump cancels or won't sign off on the housing bill. It was a bipartisan bill, and I heard this. This was my first reaction before I got the details, and I said, why is he doing that? Is this like a tit-for-tat kind of thing? Is he just playing games? Because this was about affordability. That's really important. Then I saw the rest of the headline. Will not pass any legislation that comes to his desk until the Save America Act is passed. Then it makes sense. To me, this was the first sign. We've all called for it, right? I've asked the question out loud. I know you have too. Why isn't he getting in the faces, like demanding, like going to the Senate floor himself? He can do that. It's kind of unprecedented. It's only happened a couple of times in presidential history. Why isn't he going to the Senate floor himself or going to their direct offices, getting in their face and going, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm going to primary you out of existence, right? Well, he apparently finally did that yesterday in the form of a meeting. Today he goes to the House. Yesterday he met with the Senate Republican leaders and he said, what is going on? What are you doing? Now, this is interesting. Trump comes out of that. There's all kinds of reports floating out here and there, and you'll hear that in just a second, that he literally called out people by name, senators by name, asked them directly, what's your plan? Looked at John Thune, the leader there, and he said, what's happening here? What are you doing? Well, then he comes out, and it's funny how all of these leaks come out of the meeting, but Trump himself, post-meeting, and all the reporters are waiting for him, was very above board, and he was very diplomatic, and he was very nice, and he said this. And by the way, this was reposted by Elon Musk in support of passing the Save America Act, but whatever. This is what Trump said after the meeting. And then we'll get to the same leakers who talked about their impression of what actually happened behind the curtain.
I think we had a really great meeting, and we're very proud of the party. We like everybody really in the room. I don't like a few people, but that's okay. I think you know who they are. But I'll give you that information someday. But for the most part, we have a really well unified party. And
then he went on to do the thing. They talked about the economy and the robust, America's back, we're strong, we're this and that, which is what he should do as a cheerleader for the country, right? That's what he should do. But he didn't get into the details of the real conversation and the tit-for-tat stuff and the back and forth and the who said who what and the gossipy stuff and all the other crap that actually happened in the room. But other people did. Now, I don't know, you couldn't, if you're an audio podcast listener, you couldn't see it there, but there are still shots, because standing beside him, and this is what made me feel better, was Senator Rick Scott, big proponent of the Save America Act to secure our elections. Another couple of senators there, but John Thune was there as well as the Senate leader, because he has to be there, standing next to the president after he come out of a meeting like this. I've never been a big body language reader kind of guy, but boy, other people are, and they're saying John Thune was like, he was nervous as a polecat standing next to President Trump there. That's the first sign to me that tells me that this was an effective meeting, and he told him directly, get your you-know-what together, or you're going to be out, and you're not going to be able to run for dog catcher anytime soon. That's the first sign. But now let's go to what he actually said. Here's somebody else that's not exactly like spilling the beans on this, but he's pretty on the up and up, and I don't think the old ball coach, Senator Tommy Tuberville, I don't think he's going to tell you anything different that didn't happen, but he was in the room, And then he went on Fox News last night, and he's talking about what actually happened. Listen to what he says here and what actually spurred this on. Here's what he said.
America Act is the number one thing that people want. They want fair elections. We just saw the nonsense in California, and we're seeing the nonsense of these communists taking over our country. And they're not socialists, they are communists. And so President Trump was exactly right. I'm proud of what he did today. He spoke up, he called people out. They had a very good conversation back and forth. But people need to be called out. If you're not going to vote for this country, my God, folks, we are in trouble. And President Trump needs help, and we're not giving him 100% help that he needs.
So you said...
Huh. Now, that's a pretty on-the-level kind of guy. I don't think Tommy Tuberville would, or I don't think he actually could. He's too straight-laced, and he comes from, the coaching world. I don't think he's going to BS you. He said right there, and that's somebody I happen to believe, he called people out by name and got it, in so many words, in political terms, got in their faces, right? So there's that. But is he being a little bit extreme? What led to this? What led to all this stuff? Is the old ball coach kind of taking it to a different level there? Is he exaggerating? Is he hyping this up just for effect? Talked about the nonsense going on in California, which, by the way, the whole Spencer Pratt issue running for mayor of California and then the governor's race, they're still counting votes. That 3 weeks ago, was it a month? At least 3 weeks ago, they're still counting votes in California. But then he mentioned something specifically, which you and I didn't even talk about here, that's very relevant to what actually spurred this on and what got Trump to call this meeting, cancel all other legislation until the Save America Act is passed. I think this is incredibly relevant, and it's all about what happened in New York State just this week, just 2 nights ago. Tommy Tuberville said it right there. And they're not socialists that were elected in New York. They're communists. They're flat-out communists. Now, is that just a Southern Republican guy, being a little extreme? Oh, I don't think so, because that's actually happened. The communists, not socialists, have taken over the Democrat Party. Now, how does that happen? Because cities like New York City, where you have a majority of the voters there who are not born in this country, whether they're legalized to vote or not, doesn't matter. They're voting, and look what just happened. Now, we all know about Mayor Mamdani, and this all relates to the Save America Act, and I think this is what spurred Trump on. We all know about Mayor Mamdani and the, globalize the Intifada and all this other stuff, and we're going to tax the white people mostly, and he went outside, the executives' homes and filmed a video and all that other stuff. Who else was just elected there this week? What else just happened in that state that just may have spurred Trump on to say, enough is enough, no more legislation, get it done now, and called this meeting and got in the faces of Republican RINO senators? What happened? Mamdani got elected. So did somebody else called Daria Lisa Avila Chevalier. She's now the New York District 13 winner. What's she all about? A lot of scrutiny for old social media posts and public statements. By the way, social media posts which now have been scrubbed. Isn't that funny how that always happens? Scrubbed all her previous social media. But the internet lives forever, so we can find it. She's on the record as calling to abolish police, prisons, and borders, of course. Advocacy for seizing private property. Remember Tommy Tuberville said they're not socialists, they're communists? This is why he's saying that. Just elected, by the way. She's elected. She's going to be in Congress. Strong anti-Israel rhetoric, of course. That's one of them. Let's go to another one. Claire Valdez, now the New York 7 district winner, a New York State Assembly winner. Strong criticism of Israel, common occurrence there always, right? Emphasis on unions for all, taxing the rich heavily, and expansive worker controls. And we all know about Mamdani. This is what they're referring to, and this is what just got elected in New York. New York City, New York State, and they're in Congress. I think that's what led to this. I think that's what led to finally get tough and demand that these useless RINOs do something and stop getting in the way of the Save America Act. Now, here's something else that happened. Now, Tommy Tuberville came out of the meeting. He's talking about what happened. I don't think he's like spilling the beans. He's just talking about the importance of it. This is how you know it was an effective meeting. This is how you really know. Who are the rats and where do the rats go to? Well, Senator Bill Cassidy, who just got primaried for Trump because he's useless and he stood in the way of all the legislation and he's a strong critic of everything Trump has done. Apparently, reportedly, according to Bill Cassidy himself, he stood up and he got in the face of President Trump about all this other stuff. And they were there to talk about the Save America Act, but he wanted to involve Iran and all this other stuff. Now, Bill Cassidy is just butthurt because he got primaried, meaning Trump put a candidate against him and he lost his race in Texas. Okay, so how do you know that the bad guys were outed in the meeting? Because the bad guys ran to CNN and they leaked all this information. This is how you know it was an effective meeting for the good guys. Here's CNN's story. CNN loves it. Nothing more they love than to have somebody that's a Republican ratting on the president. They love that. So they've spent a whole feature on it. So these unnamed sources, when you hear that, you mean Bill Cassidy himself. And here's the story they had of how the meeting went down.
So, Lauren, take us behind closed doors. What happened inside that room?
Yeah, I mean, what we have heard from sources that were in that room and Senator Bill Cassidy himself is that this was an exchange that really escalated with the president. Bill Cassidy telling our colleague Morgan Rimmer just a few moments ago that he lost his temper. Essentially, the president was asking why these 4 Republican senators would vote for this war powers vote last night. And at that point, Cassidy told our colleague Morgan Rimmer that he asked the president, is that a rhetorical question or do you want to actually know the answer? The president invited him to share why he voted the way that he did. And essentially.
And that was mostly about this War Powers Act, but they were called into the meeting about the Save America Act. That's what it was all about. There's Bill Cassidy running to CNN to say, I'm the tough guy and I stood up to the president. Right. That's how you know. That's how you and I and normal people who don't have access to this kind of stuff understand that this was effective. That means Trump was definitely calling these useless rhinos to their faces. I've said it for years, and you probably have too. Trump's biggest enemy aren't the Democrats. You can see them coming from a mile away. It's not even the media. You know exactly what they're going to do. That's like on script. It's the people with his own party that don't do anything. They stand against him all the time. Like, why don't we have a law already to secure our elections and stop mail-in ballots like California happening 3 or 4 weeks after the fact? Because of idiots, useless rhinos like Bill Cassidy. That's why. Well, Trump went on and he had a whole day after this whole thing happened. He was meeting with that NATO guy and a lot of questions, obviously. He opens it up to the press and they wanted to ask about the Save America Act. Here's what he said. Another indication he's not going to let this go. That's good news for all of us.
The Save America Act. Everybody wants it. Everybody is it, including Democrats. 87% of Democrats want it. Not the leaders, because they want to cheat. Their policy is so bad, they're unelectable.
Good. That's good news. That's good news that in a meeting with the NATO guy, they could talk about everything else in the world, and they did. What he wanted to talk about in answering all the questions was the Save America Act. That's how serious he is about this. But here's a problem. So, and classic swamp, deep state crap that happens in Washington, D.C. Big meeting, effective. Kalshi odds go through the roof. They're skyrocketing now that the likelihood we get a Save America Act to secure our elections will finally happen. That will finally bust up the filibuster. They'll get tough. Trump threatened to primary them like he did Bill Cassidy. We're going to have secure elections. It's going to be great for the midterms and all this other stuff. Great. That's the word. Immediately, what happens last night? They went on vacation. Does anybody get more vacation, except European soccer fans, than elected lawmakers in Washington, D.C.? Well, here's one of the guys. This is another thing that makes me feel good about this meeting that so-called happened where Trump is getting tough on these rhinos. Mike Lee, the bald guy from Utah, the senator, he has been great, and he was by the senator's side, and he said this actually last night. He was one of the ones who came out of the meeting say this was very productive. This is exactly what we wanted President Trump to do. Well, he pointed this out exactly yesterday as he's leaving. He goes, why are we going on vacation? He makes a great point. Great question. Why are they?
But I've got a concern. We do have a lot to do. A lot of work that needs to be done. The Save America Act really does need to be passed. Why are we taking a recess right now? Why on earth is the Senate wanting to recess for 2 weeks? Now, I get it. America's 250th birthday is coming up, and that's great. It's all the more reason why we should finish our work. It's all the more reason.
He's right. He's exactly right. Oh, you want to honor America's 250th instead of going back home and raising more funds? That's all they do, by the way. The useless, typical politicians. They run on, we're going to change everything in Washington. They get in there, and then they go back to their home districts, and they say, oh, I couldn't do anything. You're going to have to give me more money, and I run again, right? You get it? This endless cycle of crap. Well, Mike Lee's different. He understands that exactly. You want to honor our 250th birthday? You want to honor for the 4th of July holiday? Get to work, stop being rhinos and useless, and pass something that's going to save our elections. The only reason, and we all know this, it's obvious, but I'm just going to state it anyway. The only reason why anybody would stand against election security in this country and all the other crap that they come up with, even though it's an 85% plus whatever approval rate for the entire country to get this thing done, is they want to cheat elections. That's the only reason why everybody knows this. But Mike Lee brings up a good point. They're on vacation. This is where, honestly, and it sounds like old school, something from the 1950s, but it's true. It actually does matter. But now you have social media. Write, call, tag them on X, put it on Facebook, whatever you actually have to get to your senators and tell them, get back from vacation and do it. It used to be the old thing, call your elected representative, but it's true. Now, in my state, I happen to live in Florida. I really don't actually have to do this because I've got Rick Scott and I've got Ashley Moody, who's filling in for the Marco Rubio. Both of them are fully in favor of the Save America Act, so that's good. But you may be living in a state where you don't. You may have one of these rhinos. You may be stuck with Bill Cassidy for now until he's out. People like that. It sounds old school, but it actually is true. You have to call and write and tag and communicate with and put the pressure on your elected representatives, or this crap is going to keep happening. The president calls them out to their faces, and they still say, well, we'll go on vacation and think about it. That can't happen anymore. But here's the big takeaway. Okay, yes, you have to do that, the actionable thing. It does actually matter when you put enough pressure on these people. But the big takeaway is, yeah, sure, the betting odds say that we're closer than ever, but that fluctuates to getting the Save America Act passed. That can change day by day, right? But there's a good sign here. There's a good sign that President Trump is taking real action and playing hardball and dropping the hammer on these useless lawmakers that won't protect our elections. It's good news that this is starting to happen. This was the first step. Should it have happened a couple of months ago? 3 months ago? Yeah, probably. But here's the good news about all that scary crap with communists taking over the Democratic Party. There's always a bright side. There's always something positive. The positive on this is it got him to take action and say, all right, this can't happen. We're not going to have communists in our country. The only way that happens is to pass this Save America Act. So maybe we're getting closer, maybe. But take action. All right, make it a wicked awesome Thursday. I'm out of material. Have fun. Be safe. Call your elected representatives. Call your congressman. But still, it matters. Thanks for finding the podcast and the replay, live stream and then replay on X, YouTube, and Facebook, audio podcast, wherever you like to get those. As always, make it a wicked awesome Thursday. I'll talk to you tomorrow.